Well, it's another day and another video with some random YouTuber complaining that we don't have a Battlefront 3 yet.
Please! God damn it!
What's going on, everybody? This is Star, and welcome back to the channel. But for real, why is Battlefront 3 not a thing? Star Wars is kind of suffering right now. I don't know if you've noticed, and a legendary release like Battlefront 3 could be exactly what we need. But at this point, that title feels cursed to never exist.
It ought to be here, but it isn't.
It does beg an interesting question, though. What else are we missing? There are a lot of Star Wars games coming up, and the future is looking great for gaming in the galaxy far, far away. I covered all of it in the last video. The issue is, though, most of what's been announced is a few years away, not to mention they're almost all described as single-player action games. The Jedi franchise speaks for itself. Action games are great, but Star Wars has plenty of room for more than just that. So today, I want to look at both a Battlefront 3 and explore some other Star Wars games that should be a thing, but aren't.
This is where the fun begins.
Let me know in a comment what your ultimate Star Wars video game idea is, and make sure you like the video.
Do it.
So, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, might not be everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, but two parts that I think everybody agrees are perfect is the Duel of the Fates and the pod racing sequence.
So good.
What you're seeing right now is footage of a pod racing game that's in development in Unreal Engine 5. If you want to check out the original video, I have it linked in the description. Shout out to Milwaukee Gaming. They're an independent developer, and you'll see a lot more of their work in this video, so make sure you show them some love. This looks fantastic. A new racing game set in Star Wars is long overdue. It would be a clean and modern version of those classic games like Episode 1 Racer, and we'd get to explore old planets that we haven't seen in the new canon yet, places like Gamorre and Malastare.
They're pod racing on Malastare. Very fast, very dangerous.
Let's take it even further. A new game could be the definitive Star Wars racing experience. Not just pod racing, but also a variety of tracks and game modes that would feature different vehicles across the eras. I'm thinking racing through the forest moon of Endor on those speeders from Episode 6, or running laps through the sky lanes of Coruscant using a speeder we really like.
Oh, you know, Master, I couldn't find a speeder that I really like.
Games like Mario Kart, Need for Speed, and Forza are timeless. There's even a new Gran Turismo movie that just came out, so a new Star Wars racer is almost a no-brainer. If you want to see more of this pod racing game, again, check out Milwaukee Games' channel. They're doing a bunch of cool Star Wars things in Unreal 5.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
A Mandalorian video game has been talked about by the fans since the first season of the show came out. Grogu and Din Djarin are household names at this point, and it was a huge missed opportunity to not capitalize on the success of the show by having a complimentary Mando video game. At the very least, Din Djarin should have been a playable hero in Battlefront 2.
I agree.
But we'll talk more about that game in a bit. What you're seeing right now is a fan-made concept of a Mando game in Unreal 5. This one by Teaser Plays, and it looks absolutely stunning. A video game that either focuses on Mandalorian culture, or one that follows the story of either Din Djarin or a new Mando bounty hunter would be perfect, and it could be a spiritual successor to the old bounty hunter game where you play as Jango Fett. If Star Wars wants to go down the narrative game route so bad, they should at the very least do a Mandalorian story. I don't think anybody would complain about that. Mortal Kombat, the variety of Capcom games, UFC, boxing, they're all staples in a gaming library. And as Star Wars fans, we could use a quality fighting game for the modern age. There haven't been very many Star Wars fighters, actually. The most famous is probably the really janky Teräs Käsi from 1997. We had Soul Calibur 4 that included Yoda, Darth Vader, and Starkiller as guest fighters, and then there was the Revenge of the Sith video game, which featured a player versus player fighting mode, and it was actually pretty good. Stuff like that goes to show that a fighting game could do well. And just like Milwaukee Games' Pod Racer, there is another fan developer named Last Jawa who took matters into their own hands and made a Star Wars fighter called Force Combat. It features a roster of characters from both canon and Legends, and it's a really solid job using assets and models from other games. I'll have their channel linked in the description also if you want to check it out too. A new fighter would be something different for Star Wars gaming, and I think it's one of those things that most players wouldn't think to ask for, but could absolutely get behind if it were announced. You might notice in this video there's a trend of rehashing some older ideas, and normally I'm against this, especially in Hollywood. Modern remakes and reboots of older movies just don't hit the same. But for video games, I think it's a bit different because the industry has come so far since those original games came out. I guess the same could be said for cinema, but a modern pod racer would be objectively better than the classics. Same with a fighting game. I might get some heat for saying this, but EA's Battlefront 2 is far superior to the one from 2005. Somewhere an Actman just had a stroke when I said that. If you've been with the channel for a long time, you know that Battlefront 2 is the lifeblood of my content.
That's why I'm here.
I've been covering this game since it came out, but even I admit the launch of the game was an absolute disaster for EA. I'm not kidding. There are actually people out there who still think Battlefront 2 is a pay-to-win game, even today. That's how bad the game's reputation was at launch. And it's really a shame because the game that DICE turned it into is one of the best and most immersive Star Wars experiences you'll ever play. And while it's definitely not perfect, it's good enough to leave players wanting more. A third game should be a no-brainer. There was even a fan petition for a third game that reached over 100,000 signatures. The developers at DICE pitched a Battlefront 3 to EA, but it was rejected, with EA claiming that the licensing cost wouldn't be worth the investment in a new game.
What?
What?
To this day, I think this is one of EA's biggest mistakes with their handling of Star Wars. And that list of mistakes is pretty big. A Battlefront 3 that learned its lesson from the first two games would have gone such a long way in restoring goodwill to the fan base, and it was in a perfect position to drop with all of the new Star Wars content that came out around 2020 and 2021.
Shame.
It is a shame because it's one of gaming's biggest what could have beens. But at least we have Respawn Entertainment Star Wars shooter to look forward to. And speaking of shooters, check this out. It's another project from Milwaukee Games. They're working on a survival game in Unreal 5, and it's basically COD Zombies in Star Wars. Zombies are an interesting topic in this franchise. Some fans think that they don't fit in the universe, but we've seen zombies more than once in the canon. The Clone Wars had an arc where a Geonosian parasite would zombify the host. Star Wars Commander had a side plot about the Emperor's secret project Blackwing, which would result in zombie stormtroopers. And now most recently, Ahsoka had undead stormtroopers, thanks to Night Sister magic. As a fan of co-op games like COD Zombies, Left 4 Dead, and Dead Island, I think a zombie survival game would be incredible, and it would let Star Wars branch into some darker territory that it normally can't go into. Yes, Star Wars is for all ages, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't take it seriously. As an older fan, I know I would appreciate some darker material. Give me some blood and gore and zombie goodness in Star Wars. I'll be a happy player.
Give it to me.
Also, does this map from the footage look familiar? Let me know in the comments if it does. If you played the classic Battlefront 2, you might recognize it. If you want to try this zombie game for yourself, there's a link to the download in the description. I personally vetted it, so don't worry about spam or anything. Excellent work from Milwaukee on this one too, and a big thank you for letting me use the footage. Now, this one might be a bit controversial because Battle Royale is not everyone's favorite genre, but you can't deny how popular it is. Games like Warzone and Fortnite are some of the most played out there, and Fortnite itself has become something of a hub for Star Wars the last couple of years. Instead of Battlefront getting the major updates to go with movies and shows, it was Fortnite. Palpatine's return announcement before The Rise of Skywalker? Fortnite. Ahsoka and Boba Fett content to go with the shows? Fortnite. Now, I'm not trying to knock Fortnite as a game, but seriously, how is it that Star Wars has to rely on something like that in order to generate hype? That kind of thing should be in its own game. Star Wars is big enough to sprint on its own two legs. At least it should be, but here we are. Just imagine for a minute though. Crazy gunfights in first or third person, looting crates for better blasters, plating up using Beskar armor, finding movement upgrades around the map like grapples or jetpacks. I don't know, man. I think a Star Wars BR would be a lot of fun. And if it's a solid game, not just a good Star Wars game, but a good battle royale, it could even compete with the Fortnites and Warzones of the world. I'd love to see it. The list of possible games could go on forever. There could be games that are character-driven and hyper-focus on one linear story, or there could be a game that focuses more on the wars part of Star Wars. It really only stops when the creativity does, but what I've listed in today's video are some of what's currently missing from the upcoming slate, and that I think would be the best games to have as Star Wars fans. A lot of these ideas have been tested and proven in the past, so I don't see any reason why they can't work today and work even better than they did back then. But guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, let me know by hitting the thumbs up button. And don't forget to drop a comment letting me know what your ideal Star Wars game would be. We only covered 6 or so in the video, and like I said, there's room for so much more, so drop your ideas below. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.